Sir Keir Starmer has finally broken his silence on the Supreme Court's ruling that transgender women are not legally women. Well, he said the courts had provided real clarity.
Your response to last week's Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman?
I welcome the court's decision and ruling. I think it's very important that we've now got real clarity. I think that it's a good thing the Supreme Court have come to their decision. That does provide that clarity that I think will now enable us to ensure that all the guidance is in the right place, and to reaffirm something that I've long argued, which is about safe spaces for women.
But it seems to have taken a change of law for our Prime Minister to change his mind.
Women can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not. I don't think we can conduct this debate with, you know.
Sorry, have I offended you in something?
No, it's just.
And just for further clarity, previously, Sir Keir Starmer, while in opposition, said it wasn't fair to claim that only women can have cervixes. Confused? Join the club. Well, joining me now is GBNews' political correspondent Catherine Forster, and also the Labour Member of Parliament for Blackley and Broughton, Graham Stringer. Welcome to the show, both of you. Catherine, welcome back. Lovely to have you back at GBNews after your well-deserved break. Let's start with Sir Keir Starmer's latest position. Is it his real position? Or the latest position, I guess we don't know. But it took him a while to speak out. The Supreme Court ruling was last Wednesday. Here we are, 6 days later. Finally, he's piped up.
Yes, he finally has, and he said a woman is an adult female. So he said that he has welcomed the clarity. That is something I don't think the word clarity anybody could really use about Sir Keir Starmer's position on this over the last few years. I've got personal experience of this. About a year ago on the election campaign, I asked him a very, very specific question about female anatomy regarding a comment that Rosie Duffield had made that he'd said was wrong. Tony Blair had said something similar that he agreed with. And I said, can you tell me specifically what's the difference between, it was a question about anatomy, biology.
Oh, you can mention it.
And he said, I'm very committed to women's rights. Look how many females I've got in my shadow cabinet, and so on and so forth. He didn't answer the question at all. And we know that often politicians don't, forgive me, Graham, but this was so blatant because the question that I asked and the answer that he gave bore no relation to each other. And at the end, I said, but Prime Minister, anyway, he was whisked off. And then I was given a talking to by one of his advisors who made it clear to me that I'd got all this very, very wrong. I don't think I had got it very wrong, to be honest. So, yes, we have some clarity at last. But the consequences of this ruling will be huge. And I also think what's going to be really interesting is what happens about all those incredibly offensive placards that were on display at the protest last weekend, and all the death threats that were made to the women who won that case, because there were placards talking about burning J.K. Rowling, about the only good turf is effectively a hanging turf. Really, really horrible, horrible stuff. And Kemi Badenoch was speaking about this earlier, and she was saying that this needs to be dealt with, taken very seriously, and that Sir Keir Starmer proved last summer with the riots that they can act quickly if they want to. So let's see what happens with that.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GBNews discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GBnews to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Graham Stringer, let's bring you in now. You're of a vintage, if you pardon my expression, you're of a mindset, a traditional Labour mindset. You must think this is just a sideshow, a farce, something that gets in the way of politics. Nevertheless, here we are, Graham Stringer. And does it concern you that the Labour leader, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, seems to change his mind like the weather on this topic? And does that allow us to draw the conclusion that how can we know what his position is on anything if he doesn't know his own position on things as basic as what is a woman?
He should have paid more attention in biology lessons, I think. But on a serious point, it's been clear, I've written articles about it. Women have XX chromosomes, men have XY chromosomes. The law was very clear on that. If you read the judgment of the Supreme Court, it says very explicitly, the law doesn't make sense if you don't have this biological definition of men and women. So it's a shame that we've wasted so much political space and time, but more importantly than that, there's been real damage done to real human beings. Men, people with XY chromosomes, have been allowed to box women. They've been allowed into football matches. The FA and some football clubs like Newcastle United, who've suspended a woman supporter for basically saying men were men and women were women, have behaved appallingly. But some women have been injured because men who've had the benefit of, during their adolescence, of being fueled with testosterone and growing bigger muscles, have damaged them and hurt them seriously.
A lot of people watching the show will totally agree with what you're saying there, Graham. But on the broader point of applying this new law, this common sense law, is that going to happen anytime soon? There's a report out today saying all 28 London NHS trusts are ignoring the rules, and there is even a rebellion within the Labour Party today going to town to try and challenge this. Is this what? And again, I hate to bring Brexit into this, but is there a case where Keir Starmer, Labour Party, a lot of parliamentarians outside Labour Party, to be fair, seem to think they know better? They seem to think they know better than the electorate. They seem to think they know better than common sense. And in this case, they seem to think they're above the law.
I mean, I think there's two separate points there. One, MPs, members of party, the whole public, the whole adult public, are entitled to campaign to change the law. What they're not entitled to do is subvert the law. One of the problems I think we've got in this country generally, too much power has been passed over to quangos.
Yes.
People who are not directly accountable to government or parliament, one or the other. And if they go their own way, as recently the Sentencing Council was going its own way on something rather different from this, then they need to be brought up. They need to be either abolished, the individuals changed, or instructed what to do with the change of the law. So I think those are the two issues. People can campaign for any change in the law that they want, but part of the public administration should obey the law. What about
Catherine's point about applying the law, with rigour? I mean, some of those placards you saw, some of the threats, some of the grotesque, words from trans activists towards women, they don't seem to be followed up by the coppers in the same way, I don't know, a St George's Day placard might.
Well, I mean, they would seem, I think many people will see some of them as an incitement to violence. They are talking about women being burnt. They're talking about women being hung. One of them was like, if you don't like looking at trans people, poke your eyes out. Another one was about a lobotomy, showing somebody stabbing themselves. I mean, very, very, very violent. So you would hope that the police will take this very seriously indeed, because, I think personally those are incredibly offensive, and the death threats that have been made to these women also. But Graham, do you not worry about the damage that can be done to the views of women towards the Labour Party? Because Labour's been very keen to not upset the trans community up until this point. But we've got people like J.K. Rowling last year was saying that, she'd given £1 million, I think, to Labour going back a long, long time. She said she didn't know that she could vote for them last year. Now she's praising Kemi Badenoch, saying that she's the only politician that has basically stuck up for women's rights.
I think electorally, it's never been sensible. I've campaigned for a long time for anti-discrimination policies, and we didn't succeed in the 80s and 90s by calling people names, threatening them, or saying they were bigots of some sort. We succeeded by talking about not discriminating against people, and when it came to sort of gay rights and young people, by explaining to people who were anti-gay rights what had happened in the families of these young men in many cases, making it human. You have to persuade people by real experience as well as principle, not by threatening. Now, it seems to me, having seen on television, that some of these people went way beyond normal debate and harsh words in debate, and were actually trying to persuade people into violent acts, and that has to be where the line is drawn. The police, unfortunately, at the moment seem to be unable to distinguish between hard, harsh debate, which is part of a democracy, and those people who are threatening violence. People in Parliament Square were clearly threatening violence, and it is being threatened elsewhere. The police should deal with that.
Well, they should, but they probably won't. They haven't thus far. And isn't this the point? It seems you can be as threatening as you like towards women if you're a trans activist, but if you're somebody who objects to uncontrolled immigration, and you posted stuff after the Southport riots, you'd be in jail.
Well, 2
years.
To carry on the point a bit further, it's not only that women may think that the Labour Party isn't covering itself in glory in this. We're opening ourselves to the charge of two-tier justice, which is out there on the streets. My constituents write to me and say there's two-tier justice precisely on the point of some of the comments after the girls were killed in Southport. Some of those comments, like the comments in Parliament Square, went too far, and people were prosecuted because they were threatening violence, burning down mosques, etc. But the same action does not seem to have been taken with other people, and it should. People should be equal before the law.
And that's a common sense view. Can I quickly ask you on another topic today, and that's the publishing of Migrant Crime League Table, something we've wanted for a long, long time here on GBNews. We've pursued the Home Office endlessly. They claim to not have it. Now suddenly, hey presto, they do. It's going to be published. Do you support the public's right to transparency of crimes? Who from which country are committing particular crimes? Do you support that notion?
Absolutely. And one has to be careful. I know that in my constituency there are people who have committed very violent crimes who have not been deported. I've brought the matter up on time to time. I know where they... This sounds threatening. I know where they live. They don't live very far from me. That's not a thing. But those people should be deported, and collectively we should know which countries the major criminals are coming from. Otherwise, we will speculate it's Albania or it's the West Indies or whatever.
But it is Albania. Total crime, Albanians 30 times times more likely to be in jail. This is figures that we got ourselves from Centre for Migration Control. We had to do a workaround. Sex crime, Afghans, 22 times more likely. Congo, violent crime, 11 times more likely. Albanian drug crimes, 153 times more likely. Graham Stringer, the truth is the truth. The facts aren't racist, and you're saying the public has a right to know them.
Absolutely. I didn't know those figures before I started answering that question. I'm not surprised by them, but I'm a strong believer in open government. And what earthly reason can there be for people not knowing that? Because if you don't know the facts, you can't work to the right policies and laws.
Well, maybe the facts might be an inconvenient truth, but nevertheless, the truth is the truth.
Truth is never inconvenient, really, when you're coming to make laws and decide policies.
Graham Stringer, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today in the studio. It's a pleasure. As always, Catherine Forster, great to have you back. Thank you very much. See you in the next hour.